Hello, in this experiment we'll be exploring about experiment 5 of chapter 9 from Schreiner book. It's about the sodium detection of active hydrogen. In this presentation we'll be learning what is this experiment about, what's its aim, and we will be learning the reactions involved in this experiment. In addition, and most importantly, the procedure of doing this experiment and some important remarks we should care about in this experiment. So what is this experiment about and what's its aim? This is a simple and qualitative experiment that's used to detect the presence of compounds with acidic hydrogen atoms or what's called active hydrogen atoms using sodium solid. The sodium solid is the same one that we used previously in the sodium fusion test. This includes compounds with functional groups of alcohols, amines, terminal alkynes, phenols, and carbohydrates, which react with the sodium metal to produce hydrogen gas and alkoxide salt as a side product. So upon reacting the compound with the sodium solid, the hydrogen gas will be released. This release of hydrogen gas is an indication that our test is positive, and the positive test would give us prediction of what could be our compound or our unknown. So we have here the structures of alcohols, amines, terminal alkynes, and phenols, and we're marking in the red box the active hydrogen or the acidic hydrogen that the sodium metal that the reaction aims to release to make it a positive result. So here we learn what are the reactions involved in this experiment and what are the products that are formed. We have first the case of alcohols. We have two molecules of alcohol to react with two sodium atoms to produce two molecules of an alkoxide salt, and of course the release of hydrogen gases, which is an indication of a positive test. So the alkoxide salt, we should mention that the alkoxide salt is a result from the liberation of the acidic hydrogen atom from the alcohol molecule or any molecule that holds this atom. So upon reacting the compound with sodium atom, hydrogen atom will be released and then formed in form of hydrogen gas, and the alkoxide ion will where the sodium metal and the alkoxide ion will form an alkoxide salt. And also in the case of amines, we have two molecules of a primary amine to react with two sodium atoms to produce the alkoxide salt and hydrogen gas. Also for the case of a secondary amine with two atoms of sodium to react to give alkoxide salt plus hydrogen gas. It's very important to mention here that tertiary amines are not present, since tertiary amines don't have the active hydrogen atom or the acidic hydrogen atom that is released and produced in the form of hydrogen gas. So this test will not work on tertiary amines. Also, we have the case of terminal alkynes. Two molecules of a terminal alkyne will react with two atoms of sodium to produce two alkoxide salt molecules and the release of hydrogen gas. Also for phenols, two molecules of phenols with two sodium atoms to release an alkoxide salt plus hydrogen gas. So the most important part of our presentation today is the procedure. We should know how is this experiment handled and what is the steps to have a positive result. What are the steps to have a positive result for this reaction? We should get a test tube containing 0.5 ml if our unknown is a liquid, or 0.25 grams if our unknown is a solid, and the solid should be dissolved by a proper anhydrous solvent, and we will learn why it should be anhydrous. And we should add slowly to this test tube a thin slice of a fresh cut sodium metal, slowly and carefully, as we did previously with the sodium fusion test. But before testing, we should be careful that there isn't any trace of water either in the liquid or in the test tube itself, since the liquid in a hydrated form may cause explosion, because any traces of water can react with the sodium metal, and this will cause an explosion. So to solve this problem, liquid samples that contain traces of water should be dried from water using calcium sulfate. This also applies for the solvent that we are dissolving the solid with. The solvent that we are dissolving the solid sample with should be an inert or anhydrous solvent. Now, after taking these all into account and performing the first steps, if the results are positive, the release of hydrogen gas will be clearly shown in form of bubbles inside the test tube as shown here. And after the release of hydrogen gas is an exothermic reaction. An exothermic reaction makes the test tube warm. So after after cooling the test tube for a certain time, a certain precipitate appears on the bottom of the test tube. This precipitate corresponds to the precipitation of the alkoxide salt that was obtained upon reacting the sodium atom with the compound. And it's an indication that the test results are positive. Some important remarks we should care about in this experiment. We should know that the order of reactivity of alcohols with sodium is known to decrease with increasing side of the alkyl portion of the molecule. This means that as the chain of the alkyl chain that's attached to the hydroxyl group increases, the reactivity of alcohols with sodium decreases. In other words, as we move from ethanol to methanol and so on, this chain size increases and their activity decreases. Why is that possible? This is due to the steric hindrance that the large alkyl groups are causing. This steric hindrance stabilizes the alkoxide ion and thus reducing reactivity with sodium metal and thus reducing the reactivity to release hydrogen gas as a result of this test. In addition, we should know that alcohols with low molecular weight are difficult to obtain in anhydrous conditions. This reaction will not be possible by reacting hydrated compounds with sodium. Thus, if we react hydrated compounds with sodium, this will cause an explosion. So reacting low molecular weight alcohols is not possible with sodium. And in addition, alcohols with high molecular weight undergo reactions slowly with sodium, and the evolution of hydrogen gas will be slowly. This is may be caused by the steric hindrance of the large number of carbon atoms attached to the hydroxyl group, and thus making the reaction very slow and of low value.